Today, we get back on the Crown Vic.
Okay, you have to cut your wheel?
Did you braid your hair?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
The wind was blowing it.
Okay, so today we're gonna fix the front end on this thing. It's a little bent up from the wreck and out of alignment, so we're gonna replace one of the fenders and put everything back into alignment. So let's get started on that. Part of what happened in the wreck was you can see these gaps. The hood is actually straight. The whole front end got pushed over, so the gap is really bad here and it's really bad here, but then they bent up the fender and pushed it over, and it's got a really bad wrinkle and dent through here. So I have a replacement fender, and we're gonna tear this fender off, put it on, and then loosen everything up and see if we can't bring it back over into line. Okay, so we have our replacement fender here, and the nice thing about the replacement fender is we can look at it and see where all the mounting points are. So if you're unsure on the car, instead of digging, just flip the fender over, and we know we're going to have bolts here and all along the top and the hood strut and the, one of the main supports, but there's not a whole lot of bolts here, so just remember where your shims are and where everything else bolts up, and we shouldn't have too much of a problem getting this onto that car. So let's start taking that one apart. Okay, as with all cars, there's a whole lot of things that are bolted to this fender. So we got to unhook this, and we had to take the light out. We're going to have to take a ground off the back side for the battery, and then this hood strap, but I think we can do it all without taking the hood off. So if we can't, it'll be fun to try regardless. So I'm going to see if I can do this without taking the bulk of this all apart. So, but if I have to, I have to, but it'll be fun to try anyway. So let's get everything unbolted here, and then we'll see what happens. Here under the car, there's going to be a few things you have to take off. This plastic bumper cover, you're going to have to take the bolts off that, and most likely we're going to have to get up in there and get those things out too. But for the most part, everything else seems like it's just coming out really well. Okay, so I discovered that we have to take the inner fender out, but I think we can get the inner fender out without taking the wheel off. So currently it just kind of, it's a little bit of a fight, but it's coming, maybe. Here in a minute. Now let's just hope we can get it back on. All right, without the inner fender in here, it really opens it up really nicely. This stuff just unbolts right up, and I can lay that off to the side. And so we got to get that bolt out, undo this, and I think we are going to have to take the hood off. So that'll just make things a whole lot easier. So let's get to that. One thing that you're going to have to be mindful of is this wiring harness that runs along the back side. Should just pop out with these, let me see if I can get a good, with that, yep, they just pop out like that. So, but be careful with them, because these might be dry rotted, and if you want to reuse them, you gotta be careful. So let's get the rest of these out and try to get the rest of this fender off now. In true American style, half of this car has been 5/16, 8mm, and now a 10mm. You're gonna have to pop this off though. You don't have to take it all the way off, but it's a compression fit. It pops on the bottom and then rolls over on the top. Just be careful when you take it off, because these are all plastic fittings and you don't want to break them, so you have to be very careful. Take out the main screw out front, and then they just kind of roll down and it'll pop right out, but don't get in a hurry with it. Just pop them one at a time and it'll come right out. Okay, so the hood had to come off. There's a couple little bolts down in there and there that we can't get to with the hood on, so the hood had to come off. This is turning into all sorts of fun. Alright, so we got it loose, so let's see if it'll come off. We had one really troubling bolt. I don't know how we're going to get back in, but I think everything's loose. It came apart a little bit, so we can just start wiggling it and see what we missed. Because apparently, I think I missed something up here.
Yeah.
I thought I got all the bolts out.
It's the hood support.
What? The what?
The hood support for the hydraulic.
No, I missed one bolt right here.
Okay.
So I'll get that last bolt out, and then it'll come off. So okay, now we can take it right off, maybe. Let go, you. There's something stuck. Ha-ha! So now let's take this into the garage and see what we need to swap over to the new fender, and we'll put the new fender on. Yep. While we have it off, we're gonna look at some of the frame, you know, down through here and all that. There was a little bit of question of whether this was bent. The frame itself was bent. I know the horns were, but I have not seen any indication of this being bent yet. I know the body's a little bent, but from the wreck, but you know, might have to tear the other inner fender out to look at the other side, but up to this point I haven't seen any indication of a bent frame, so that's a good sign. Okay, so we've swapped everything over from that fender to this fender that we need. Still have the ground straps. We put the clamp braces back on, these little tabs. There was a couple little spots on this fender that weren't all that good, but I'm not going to complain about a $20 fender. I mean, that's literally what I paid for it. So I did have to put a little bit of rust converter right there, but aside from that, this fender is good to go. It's in great shape. Like I said, I had to bend this tab back and that tab back. Put this on. We're going to leave this loose till we get it in the car. That way, once we get this bolted up, we can adjust the fender where we need to. So let's go ahead. We'll let that dry, and then here in about 20 minutes, we'll put the fender back on. Okay, now that we're ready to go, we got the fender all prepped, got everything on it. Now all we got to do is pick it up and put it in place without too much cursing and yelling, screaming and crying. It should pretty much just slide in just like it does on TV. So there we go. And we got just about, whoops, was on the wrong side of that, but there we go. Your results may vary, but it basically, you just got to work it in, and it's just about there. I just got to finagle it just a little more, so we're good to go. As we look at our bolt pile, trying to figure out where all the extra bolts go, we've got a bunch of the bolts in already. They're all loose, those and those down there. So they're all loose. We're going to snug them up and then get everything situated where it needs to be, and then once we're sure that we have the gaps and everything right, then we'll just tighten everything up. So let's get with that. The common problem that you're going to have when you're fitting used parts from one used car to another used car is that nothing's going to fit perfectly. Each fender was aligned for that particular car. That's just the way it is. So you have to sit here and get creative and pick up one end and shove the other end and just kind of start tightening each bolt in sequence to where it lines up and then basically moves it towards the front, because you always align the car from the back to the front. So we're getting the back set up, and we're getting the gaps. We got the top gap, we're going to work our way down, get the bottom gap, and then we'll move it out towards the front. So now that we're tightening this bolt down, we'll check the gap on the bottom, we'll tighten the bottom bolts down, and then we'll move forward. So let's get to that. As we peer down into the hole, you can see this is not the exact same spot these were. Kind of illustrates my point that every fender is going to attach just a little differently. So just do your due diligence, take your time, and you can get it pretty good. And you'll get it really close. This is a whole lot better than the last one, actually. Okay, so we know this came out. So we got to figure out how to cram this thing back in. It pretty much just got to work it in. Gently, carefully, with love. But yeah, we'll get it in, and then once we get this in, we can well, y'all watch me take it out. I'm gonna have to watch a YouTube video on how to put it back in. Attach all the electrical wires to it, and the thing should fire right up. So there we are, like a glove. So get this in, and now we'll screw it up on the top, and we'll screw it up and get all the wires stuck to it, and then put the battery tray in, the battery back in. We should be able to fire it up. We'll flip it around and put it in the garage so we can use the hoist to help put the hood on. That way we don't break the windshield. So let's finish this up and get to that. Okay, so we got everything tightened down. We got, well, this is the best it's gonna be for the moment. We've got to put the clips back right here. I think we may have to get some new ones, but I'm not sure. Put the lights back on, everything's in. We've got to drop the battery in. For some reason the bolts are missing off this, so I've got to source some new bolts to tighten this back down. But put the battery back in, we'll fire it up, and then we're gonna put the hood on in the garage. So now that we've got all that done, let's go ahead and get this thing flipped around into the garage, because we're going to use the rafters to help hold the hood. That way we don't drop it into the windshield. I'll show you an easy way to put a windshield on without any real damage, or a hood on without damaging the windshield. So let's get the car fired up and get it turned around and get back in the garage. Okay, so we got the hood here, we got the car here. What we're going to do is wrap a rope around this, lay the hood on the car, wrap it through the hinge, and then we'll pick it up, keeping it away from the car and keeping it away from the windshield while we put the screws in. And then we're going to line it really easy. And once we get everything in, we can take the rope off. But let's get it all hooked up, and I'll show you how it looks when we get it going. Ideally, you want to use shorter rope, but now that we got the hood up and we got it, what we're going to do is just bring it over the top here. But since the rope is at an angle, it's going to keep the corners of the hood from smacking the corners of the windshield. So what we're going to do is we'll go ahead and put the lips over it, get the first bolt or two started, and then we'll raise it with the rope as we need it. And that should make it easy. And with the tension pulling outwards, it'll keep the it'll keep the hood pulling outwards. That way it doesn't sling back into your windshield. So we'll do that. Okay, so what we've done now is we've got the two bolts in. You see the we did have to move the car forward about an inch or two, but we got it all in, and now we've got those two bolts in. And you know, you can pretty much just work it in yourself this way. And I put a lot of hoods on by myself this way. It kind of sucks, but when you don't have anybody around at 2 in the morning to help you, because normal people don't work on cars at 2 in the morning when they're bored on a Thursday. So now we got the bolts in, we'll snug them up and make sure they're all set, and then we'll pull the rope and adjust the hood, and it all should be good. Okay, so we got the hood on now, and we're going to just bring it down real slowly. Now, we didn't change the latch, but we did change the fender, which did make the hood sit differently. So we're just going to bring it down slowly, see how it sits. And it's sitting a little tight on this side. Somehow that gap got a little tighter on the other side. So what we'll do is raise it back up. We'll just readjust a couple of bolts, maybe. Why do you hate me? It's in there somewhere. Oh, there it is. And we'll readjust a couple of bolts, get the hood to kind of move just a little bit like that, and we'll be good to go. Okay, so we got the hood all evened up, and took a little bit, took a whole lot more. We're going to show you the whole thing. If we did that, we'd have 20 minutes on me just doing the hood. But we took the door striker. We took the hood striker out to help. Just don't let it go all the way down because it won't come back up. But it doesn't fit perfect, but it fits. And that's the important thing. The takeaway with this is the gaps aren't perfect. They could stand to be tightened up a little bit. Well, loosened up on that side. But this is the problem that you're going to have when you're putting a vehicle together from parts of multiple vehicles. What really needs to happen with this car is I should have replaced the fender on the other side and the radiator support. And that alone would have shifted everything back to where it needed to be. I put good parts on top of bad parts and then tried to tweak the bad parts into working with the good parts. And they're fighting me, as well they should. But we got the fender on, and let's go and we'll pull it out of the garage and we'll let you see it. I'm really pleased with the way the gaps came out in this, other than the hood, but that's just something that we're going to have to mess with another time. There's a reason behind all that, but for the most part, I'm pleased with the end result. Well, that ought to be it for this video. We got the fender put on. We got the hood done the best way we could. It wasn't ideal, but the fender went on without too much pain. We're going to have to basically, one of these days, if we really want to do it right, we're going to have to tear the whole front end back apart and realign everything, but I'm not really too concerned about that at the moment. I hope you liked the video. It was fun to do. Great way to kill an afternoon during this whole quarantine time, so we'll have some more videos coming, and I hope you like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you next video. Thanks for watching.